Hi, Tony Anderson from Florida. How are you today? Happy Sunday to y'all. It's a beautiful day here in Florida, and I'm inside doing a video. What's that all about? So today I am going to talk about obesity and gut health, and I'm going to parlay that into some discussion about, hi Jackie, I'm going to parlay some, good morning Deanna. I know it's really early out in your neck of the woods. I'm going to parlay that into some information about our gut health triad. So I kind of wanted to, well, first of all, I watched a couple of videos this morning that I thought were very compelling about obesity and type 2 diabetes. Because when you think about it, that is really what we're dealing with obesity is type 2 diabetes. So I listened to a gentleman, his name was Dr. Jason Fung, a nephrologist. Great videos. In fact, a couple of my clients, I actually mailed out, forwarded that information forward to them because I think it's applicable in their life right now. But one of the things that I wanted to just touch on is related to obesity that he had talked about. Is that when we look at obesity in our population today, as we know it today in America, about 18% of the men or the male population is obese, so a BMI close to 30 or above, and 21% of the female population. And when you take that as a total, hi Jeff, we're looking at about, close to, 38% of the population. And I've seen other studies that it's 39, a couple of them that I've seen has been 40. So around 40% of our population is obese. And so you always start asking yourself the question, so what is that really all about? So, one of the things that really stimulated some thought this morning when I was listening to Dr. Jason Fung is that he actually said, go back and look at pictures back number of years ago, like in the hi Fletcher, back in the 1980s, early 1980s, late 1970s of people. And what did you really see? You saw a population that was really quite fit and thin. And certainly not, hi Nancy, certainly not in the obese population like what we're seeing today. And so I was thumbing through a lot of different pictures back then. And what he said, you're so funny, you and your hearts, Nancy. It's so funny because what he said was so true that we didn't see the population as looking as obese as what it is today. The other thing I thought was just mind-boggling to me was that I started to look at the numbers of cardiologists. Now, when you're talking about obesity and you're talking about people that fall into categories of being obese, what do we usually see as problems? Cardiovascular disease, so strokes, high blood pressure, peripheral vascular disease down in your legs, strokes, I don't know if I said that, cardiac events like heart attacks. We also see a large number of diabetics. And so a secondary effect of that with diabetes is kidney and renal disease. So this gentleman that I was watching on videos today was a nephrologist. So he took care of people with renal diseases, many of which have issues related to diabetes, and mostly type 2 diabetics. Cancer is another one. But when I thought, what was it like 30 years ago in 1980 when we used to see our population of people a lot thinner? And we only had, in the United States of America, certified at the time, 500 cardiologists, 500. Do you know what we have today? How many cardiologists are certified in cardiovascular medicine? I'm not talking about cardiac surgeons. I'm talking about cardiologists. 29,000 in the United States alone. So just think about, in the course of that period of time, in 30 years, how many cardiologists are now functioning in the world today taking care of cardiovascular disease. So it almost makes you want to begin to think about, where is our world going to? And many of us suffer from diabetes, and sometimes we don't even know it. Hi, Patricia, I haven't seen you for a while. So I just thought that was staggering. And I was watching a Dr. Padamp Jamande, and he is a cardiologist down in Orlando. Same thing applies. He talked about that same thing. He's a very busy cardiologist. He's an interventional cardiologist, so he puts stents in your heart. And he was saying the same thing, that the growth exponentially versus our population has just grown enormously because of the high demand, mostly related to obesity. So I just wanted to put that out there as an issue. So there was a couple of studies that Dr. Fung also talked about, and his studies really surrounded back in, I think it was 2008. Do you guys remember when 2008, when we started seeing diets coming out, like the Atkins diet, where, you were telling people to go on a high-fat diet, protein supplemented in that as well, and then very low carbohydrates. And I can remember back then we all thought, this guy's out of his mind. You can't just cut carbohydrates out of the diet because your brain needs it. You need to have glucose circulating in your bloodstream. You must eat your 3 meals a day, and sometimes even more than that, in order to, to keep your body functioning appropriately. And at that time when those diets were coming out, they were actually doing studies, and what they found is that people that did those diets actually had lower cholesterol levels, lower blood pressure. They actually decreased their weight, and they actually had better blood sugar levels than those that stayed on a high carbohydrate diet. And yet we went on all these years and just kept saying that we needed to have a high carbohydrate diet. So it kind of brings me back even to China, and think about a decade ago when the American diet began to move over into China. When the American diet began to move over into China, they actually didn't have an issue with diabetes 2, type 2. But when that American diet went over, do you know now they're suffering from many of the things that we are here in the United States of America with, eating processed foods, high in sugars, and suffering for that right now as well with dealing with diabetes in their diet. The one thing I found that was really interesting from the video that I looked at today too was when we were looking at the obese population in the United States, that they start seeing a larger level of diabetes type 2 in people with a BMI of 28. And 30 is you're obese, you're considered obese. In the American population anyway. But over in China, when they started eating that American diet, they actually were seeing diabetes type 2 even with BMIs of 23. Because what happens for all of us, we start, when we become a type 2 diabetic, or we're processing our way in that direction, we first are going to push our fats into our fat cells and into our liver. And then, so you're going to be fatty inside your body. You're not even be able to see it. And then you start building the fat that we see around the midsections and around other parts of the body that are more visible to the public. So think about that if your diet is really poor and high in carbohydrates, that you're going to be able to see that piece in your diet. So let's see. So those were a little bit about those diets that went on over there. So insulin resistance. I thought this was really interesting to listen to Dr. Fung talk a little bit about insulin resistance. We know that when you are a type 2 diabetic or you're a pre-type 2 diabetic, that what we do begin to see as you approach that particular point in time, that most of the time your diet is poor. Usually you have processed food and you have high amounts of carbohydrates in your diet and sugar in your diet. And so you will see, number one, that your blood glucose levels will be going up. Your insulin is going to go up in response to that. And so what does our body do to clear the way to get the blood sugar levels down? Is they'll start pushing your sugars or your blood glucose into your cells and into your liver. But if we continue to eat foods high on carbohydrate and we continue to keep feeding ourselves high carbohydrates, our insulin is going to continue to be high. And if your insulin is going to continue to be high to respond to that, so what happens then is what your liver is full and there's no other room to push that blood sugar into your liver or into your fat cells or into the cells of your body. It's going to continue to circulate and your insulin is going to continue to be high in demand for it to be high to deal with your blood sugar level. So the only way that we can correct that is by decreasing our carbohydrate level. And I'm going to just talk to you just a minute about part of the carbohydrates that are really bad for you, and that's sucrose or table sugar. And I'm somebody, and people know me, that I've talked before. They know me well around I love sugar, but I have really, since I've joined Amplify, this organization where I'm selling the supplements, and I'll talk a little bit more about the supplements towards the end, but I have really developed a really keen awareness around my behaviors. Because in order to talk about these things, I need to practice what I preach. And so I am really practicing around being careful around sugar and putting that into my diet. I want you to know that in sugar, table sugar, two molecular components. One is glucose. So one of the molecular components is glucose. The other one is fructose. So when you eat table sugar and whatever foods that you're eating it in, it gets into your bloodstream, and fructose is not utilized by one cell in our body, none. It cannot be utilized. So it actually goes to the liver for processing, and where it sits is in your liver. So people with fatty livers related to their blood glucose levels, related to being a type 2 diabetic, what they have sitting in there is fructose. The glucose then will circulate in your bloodstream, and insulin is going to respond to that and continue to push that into your cells until your cells are full, and then there's no other place for it to go, and insulin's going to keep working and working and working in order to get rid of that blood glucose level. So I want you to think about how do we correct that? How do we move away from challenging our liver, our pancreas like that? And I would say to you that the real issue and the elephant in the room is sugar. And the second elephant in the room is insulin. And if we're going to tax our body like that continually, we are going to end up becoming a type 2 diabetic. And it's evident that we're moving in that direction. Every video I have looked at related to type 2 diabetes and related to pre-type 2 diabetes, how we can challenge that, how we can change the course of where we're going, is two things. Take sugar out of our diet. So that's going to be decreasing carbohydrates, but the bad carbohydrates. If we're going to eat carbohydrates, let's have some bread. Let's have a little pasta. At least that converts into glucose. Let's not have table sugar that's added into a lot of the foods that we buy and purchase that are processed. Let's stop eating that so that our body isn't storing that fructose in our liver. So that's one of the ways of doing it. But the second way is through intermittent fasting. Why does that work? Intermittent fasting works because, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit more tomorrow, because I'm going to talk about different types of fasting we can do, 16 and 8 or 18 and 6 or 40 and 6, or I'm going to talk about some different types of fasting tomorrow. But with fasting, we don't tax our body constantly by having our insulin continuing to respond to food that we're putting into our body. So think about it. If you're eating 3 meals a day and then you're having, a snack later on, those types of things require that our insulin responds to it. And especially if you're eating foods high in carbohydrates. If you're going to eat carbohydrates, please try to take sugar out of your diet. Sugar is, it's kind of like the kiss of death for all of us. We need to be able to really begin to think about what we're going to do to remove that from our diets. So the intermittent fasting, if I go for, right now I'm on an 18-hour fast. I go for 18 hours, my pancreas is resting. It's not being taxed and demanded to excrete the hormone insulin so that I can take care of the foods that I have been eating, because I haven't. When I do eat, I eat foods low in carbohydrates so that I'm not, again, taxing my pancreas to produce that insulin. And in the end, I am going to have more of a consistency then around my insulin production. And my pancreas is not going to continually be taxed. We're dealing with a hormonal issue, everyone. Our hormonal issue is glucose and the response that we need to get from insulin to respond. I want you to just think about, if I today, after my fast, if I ate 2 eggs, eggs are high in protein and they do have fat in them. If I decided instead of those 2 eggs to eat 2 cookies, those 2 cookies are full of what? Sugar. So what two foods, what of those 2 foods are going to cause my insulin to be excreted into my bloodstream to deal with my blood sugar level? It's going to be those 2 cookies. And those 2 cookies then are going to lead to our continued craving for different types of sugars. So as hard as it is to make a change in the way in which we're eating, I would challenge all of you to begin to really pay attention to your diet. Like I was sharing earlier, the thing that really drove me into looking at my own behavior was when I joined this company 4 months ago with Amplify. And when I began to take a look at the products that we were selling, and I know these products like the back of my hand now. I can talk about each one of the ingredients because I know what they do for us physiologically. The bottom line is if we don't change our diet in combination with these products, we're not going to make headway. We're wasting our money. I want all of us to be the healthiest version of ourselves, and part of that is by taking responsibility for the way in which we're eating. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the things that I find of value with our products. Number 1, we know that if we eat sugar, we eat high levels of carbohydrate, what does it do to the microbiome in our gut? It destroys it. I talked yesterday about the fact that when we eat too much sugar and when we eat too much carbohydrates, and if our diet continually is like that day after day after day, week after week, year after year, not only are we going to be obese, but our microbiome is not going to be diverse anymore. It's not going to be made up of different type of fungi, different types of bacteria, different types of viruses that break down all the different types of food, from proteins, from fats, from carbohydrates. It's going to be bacteria there that actually serves sugar and carbohydrates. So in order to keep our diversity in our microbiome, we must have foods that are going to nourish it to be healthy. Then on top of that, then we can add our supplements that are so wonderful for our microbiome. And that is our nucleotides with high fiber. The high fiber, 80% of our diets don't have enough fiber. 80% of the people out there do not have enough fiber in their diet. We have extraordinarily high quality fiber here with our nucleotides that help to get your microbiome healthy so that you can heal your gut, so that you can absorb those nucleotides, get them into your bloodstream, and every cell in your body needs that. All of your RNA and your DNA needs that for it to heal and repair and replace. Our BioMyX, I love this stuff. I sometimes even take an extra one of these every day, and I can feel a difference in my body in terms of, it makes a difference in how my body feels and my joints feel. But anyway, BioMyX is a product that has short-chain fatty acids that are called tributarates. These are absolutely necessary for the healing of the gut along with our nucleotides and our fiber. These two together really go together. Sometimes I do a little bit more of this than I even do the nucleotides because I feel like this is really a precious product. But it has A, D, and K, and we've talked about A, D, and K in other videos, but that is absolutely necessary for your immune system to be healthy. And if your immune system's not healthy and you're eating poorly and your microbiome is in disarray and out of order, you are going to have illness and disease. Inflammation equals illness. Free radicals equals inflammation equals illness. So think about that. Your immune system is dependent on this. A is absolutely essential for your immune system. D is essential and that's a hormone, it's not really a vitamin, is essential for every cell in your body for its function. One of the things that D does is it helps your killer T cells. Those T cells that are part of your white blood cells that go to parts of your body and they get rid of pathogens or viruses or bacteria that doesn't belong in your body. It actually just surrounds it, envelops it, and destroys it and rids it of your body. So it depends on vitamin D. K is for your blood and your blood clotting factors. Absolutely essential also for your immune system. So this product is, I feel like our Triad is almost like gold. Our Happy Humol, I ran out of this. I was so stressed out. I haven't been on it for like 4 days. So when I got it yesterday, or day before yesterday, I took 2 in the morning, I took 2 at night for the last 2 days, and I actually am my joints are already starting to feel back to normal again. Xanthrohumol. Xanthrohumol is the strongest anti-inflammatory out there. Remember, this is all plant-based, all natural. Xanthrohumol. PQQ helps with energy. Curcumin 3 actually helps with your anti-inflammatory. Carbon 60 helps to extend your age, so it actually helps with the aging process in your body as well. So the Triad, I think, I look at this as almost like gold. And I just want to say to you, as we're closing this discussion, it's my passion to help you. It's why I study and read and listen to videos to help you. I want us to be healthy. And part of it is we got to be responsible for our diets. We have to be responsible for the God-given body we've been given. And we have to be responsible to supplement our body with what we know is going to help us make a difference in our lives forever, for as long as we're alive on this planet Earth. So, sugar, it's a no-no. Just remember, every time you put sugar in your mouth and you decide to have that candy bar or that Big Mac, that what you're doing is you're telling your pancreas, start working harder, and your pancreas shooting that insulin into your bloodstream, becoming a type 2 diabetic. And then what happens secondarily to that is other diseases, cardiovascular disease, kidney disease, all of the diseases that we can avoid if we decide to make a choice to do it. So PM me, talk with me. I have a couple of phone calls today with a couple of potential clients that want to talk with me about their health and about our Triad and about the opportunity to get themselves to a more healthy point in their lives. That's what we're here for. That's what we want. We want all of us to be healthy. So with that, I'm going to just tell you to have a great Sunday and bye for now.